The self-care wheel is a process that I really like people to think of as something that you check in with each year. And what you should notice over time is that your skills are really evolving in your self-care and that they're really deepening. So if for you, this is the very first time that you're going to do a self-care wheel, that's great. And welcome to the party. And what happens is you start identifying things that you need to do for your own self-care, and you commit to those for the year. And then the following year, we do it again, and you update your wheel and you make a new wheel, and you see what has really come up for you in the next chapter, in your next year, right? And so but I've noticed that things I wrote down on my self-care wheel like 7 or 8 years ago aren't things I would write down now. It's things that I need because I've integrated them in my life. I don't need to write down morning journaling. I morning journal. I do that most mornings of the week, not every single morning, but most mornings I'll get a page out. And so I no longer need to put that down as a self-care need because it's something that I do very automatically, like brushing my teeth. I wouldn't write brushing my teeth down, and yet it's a self-care thing, right? But most of you do that automatically, right? So you don't need to write down every single thing that you do. And if you already have some good deep practices, maybe you meditate, maybe you go to yoga, maybe you do it at home, maybe you love to read and you already have like a reading habit, then you don't need to write that down because it's so ingrained. I like us to focus on what we know our needs are that are not getting met. So this year's wheel is different. In the past, if you want to see past kinds of self-care wheels that have been really effective, you can go to my YouTube and they're up there. They're recorded just like this one is being recorded. They're up there and they're recorded. And you can do a wheel completely differently than the one I'm going to do today. The one I'm doing with you today is really thinking about 2023, 2022, 2021, and how overwhelming things have been, right? We've all been through so much and so much change. And absolutely nothing works these days the way that it used to.
Right.
And as a result of that, things have become very overwhelming. And many of us have been caring for other people in our lives, whether they're good friends or good family members or people that we care about in our community. But many of us have found ourselves doing more caretaking, and that there's more caretaking needs around us that are just unfilled that we need to step into and be supportive about, because everyone's having struggles. And so given that that's what's going on, I really wanted to simplify the wheel for this year. And usually I have like 6 sections and we go through all 6, but this year I'm going to say, let's simplify our self-care understanding of our needs and get it down to a 4-section wheel. So we're just, we're responding to the times. And so make yourself a circle and give yourself 4 sections. And I did mine in watercolor last night. So those are my 4 sections. And all you do is make a circle and then put a big T in it to make it like 4 spots, or you do a big X and you got your 4 spots. And I hope that when you're done with our process today, you really reflect on what you've written down and that you go and you make your wheel kind of artistic and something that you're willing to look at and maybe hang it on your wall or put it on top of your computer or, or your day planner or hang it from your car thing. I don't know, someplace where you'll see it regularly, maybe even your bathroom mirror, so that you keep looking at it and checking in with, am I checking in? Am I forgetting something about my needs? So it is, you don't have to make it all artsy right now in the arts short time together, but do go back, make it artsy, take a picture of what you do, send it to me. You don't have to put your name on it, but I love sharing these wheels with other people so that other people get inspired to consider this as a way to look at their self-care. So the first question, and I sent this out ahead for you to think about, and I want you to write it in your top corner somewhere. This doesn't go on your wheel. What is your greatest challenge or obstacle to your self-care? The greatest challenge or obstacle.
Mm.
I'm writing mine down. And if you can, throw down what comes up for you in the chat. I won't say your name out loud. I won't say what you've written, but just throw in what is your greatest challenge or obstacle so we could read those out. And for me, it's been planning my social time because I work, and so I have limited time for socializing. And so I like to plan ahead. And then if somebody cancels plans with me, I have like, oh, that was my one big social 3 hours for the week. And I really wanted to then see someone else, but then it's like last minute. So I'm getting, I'm addressing that. I'm getting clearer with my friends and saying, because I work, I have limited social hours in a week and I plan them out ahead. And so if you need to reschedule with me, please do it as far in advance as you can so that I can also fill the time to see another friend, because I need that social time with my friends. And so I'm learning to actually articulate that to my friends, because how would they know, that that's an issue for me? So what I'm hearing in the chat is procrastination is the obstacle. Oh, that's a big one. Giving myself time for myself, time, and giving toward yourself. That's like 3 things in one. Giving to yourself is an issue. Time is an issue. Caring for others is, yeah, it's all of our self-care goes into pretty good at care for others. But now we have to come to the wheel is really not about others. It's really about you. And so how do we turn our attention to us? Limited time and being overextended. Feeling like I have to take care of all the have-tos before I can feel free to do the want-tos. Oh, those are ingrained early habits, right? The first do all your work and then you can have playtime. But our to-do lists these days, like they never get finished, right? And there's always more to add on. I have a really big part of my brain that loves to give me lists of what I need to do next. There's a big list maker up there. And it's like, if I listen to that all the time, I'll never have free time either. Feeling like I have to take care of the have-tos, prioritizing myself, negotiating time with my partner so someone can take care of the kids. Right. When you have small kids, you can feel like there's never any time. And then you have to juggle that space of let's swap so I have some space. Lack of commitment, belief that my needs are selfish, shame when doing things for me that makes me not really feel nourished when doing them. Willpower, time, I do have, instead of scrolling mindlessly, oh my God, right? Will the social
Yeah.
media take up all of our time if we let it? Yeah, and it's not really a self-care activity, by the way. Scrolling on social media,
No.
that it could be work related. It might be that you're looking for someone specifically, but it's really that mindless, empty scrolling. That's not a self-care activity. Judgment, tormenting, and beating myself up and making myself a priority. Okay, so as long as what I really appreciate is just putting that one thing right in your corner. Literally put it in your corner. I want you to keep your attention on that thing, because that is the thing that you have to come up with solutions for. Your solutioning may not be perfect, but that idea, I love when people say it's so hard to make the time. It's like, really? How do you make time for everything else? I mean, how do you manage to make dinner every day? How do you manage to read the kids a bedtime story
There you go.
every day? How do you manage to take a shower? I mean, it's really, how do you manage this? Well, you manage this because you build it in,
Yeah.
right? And so what I want you to know is you don't have to build in tons of it, because you would fall off your chairs if you knew how much time a day I really spend doing self-care. I do a lot, and I know it's a lot, but I also do a lot of work with people, and I know that I need a lot for myself to replenish. And so I'm not using myself as a model for you, but what I am saying is aim for at least 20 minutes a day and build up from there, without that selfish marker in there of wherever we learn that somehow it's selfish to take care of ourselves, when really we are a resource and we're just replenishing ourselves as a resource, right? And as we refill ourselves, then we're able to be more present with everyone else around us, whoever you show up for in your life, that it's important that you're resourced. And so I want you to just think of it as like, wow, did I just let all my inner resourcing drop down to nothing? And then I find myself like just wanting to scream because I have no space and I can't think clearly. And I haven't fed myself. I'm starving in some way. So it really is a looking at your challenge. See, my challenge wasn't about time in a way. It was that I have social time built into my schedule, and I need to be very clear with friends about making sure that I'm using that wisely with them and that we're scheduled and we both show up for it. And I certainly understand somebody getting sick and can't be there, but if it's chronically happening, I need to really address that so that I'm addressing my own social needs, right? All right, so now let's get into your wheel. So rather than, if you've done this with me before, you know that in each section we do like a priority, like maybe physical needs or your emotional needs or your social needs and your spiritual or creative needs and how you take care of that. But because times are really different, I have a question that's going to go in each section. And I want you to answer each question. So the first question in one of your sections, and you just write it down in your wheel, is the first word hint is capacity. How can you acknowledge your capacity? And where do you need to give yourself permission to have a capacity boundary? So I'm talking about being stretched to your limits. That sometimes, and I'm not saying sometimes, having done this for years with people, I often see that people are going way beyond their capacity in caring for others, in giving to others, in doing for others, in the ways that we show up we're going way beyond capacity. And those people that tend to say, I don't have time for self-care, are often the people that are most stretched beyond their capacity. So if you see time as an issue for your self-care, I want you to really look at this question about, how do I acknowledge my own capacity? And where do I notice that I've been pushing myself beyond my capacity? So do we have any examples where somebody could give an example of what it means in your life to go beyond your capacity? What am I talking about? Can someone give a really clear example of this? Yes, Melissa, unmute yourself.
Hi, so that's really funny because I actually did this on my wheel and I didn't realize I kind of jumped the gun. But it worked perfectly, synchronicity.
That's
So
amazing.
I'm really capable person. Like I'm a fire sign, so I have a lot of energy and I'm a very giving service person. I love being of service. And my 93-year-old mother lives with us. And I'm a really good caretaker, but it's burnt me out. Like I'm so exhausted. So I went way beyond my capacity to take care of others, whether it's my daughter when she comes to visit, my mother, the house, the laundry, the cooking, the shopping. I'm also an artist, so, you know, but what's happened is I put myself on hold. So the things that I love, like being in my studio, making art, walking on the beach, communing with nature, somehow those got put on hold because I took on this task of being the best care person I could be for the family.
Perfect. I'm going to stop you right there
Thank you.
because you have said something very magical for everybody listening. One thing that really hurts all of us when we're dealing with capacity is when we're setting the bar so high on ourselves that we are expecting us to do it the best we can, to be perfect, to be the best daughter, the best mom, the best volunteer, the best friend. Okay. So when we start hearing ourselves charge up on our expectations of trying to be the best, make the most beautiful dinner, make the most whatever, we start pushing beyond capacity and limits, and we start hitting into that overzone that you were talking about of burnout and exhaustion. And that is such a great, beautiful example. Thank you so much, Melissa. That's an example for everyone. Watch for that word. And certainly any caregiving that we do in our lives, you know, nobody ever wants to talk about what a incredible high demand that is on our inner resources. But that's what I mean by we have to resource ourselves. So if you're doing caregiving, whether it's to children or to older family members or to your next door neighbor or to the people that you care about in your life, or it's part of your work job to actually be a caregiver, that you're a nurse or in the medical field, or you're a teacher and you're doing caregiving all day, remember, you need more to replenish the resourcing, not less, because your resources are being tapped on excessively. And so you're not made of something more than anybody else tuning in today, just because you do a lot of caregiving. It just means that your resources are being tapped more. Okay, so your next box, here's your question. Ready? This is called hard choices. What hard choice do you need to make for your self-care? This is a single hard choice that you come up against a lot. Sometimes you don't vote for you and when you're faced with that hard choice. But I want you to look at what your hard choice is, and I want you to start getting behind it on this wheel and be aware of what your hard choice is. I will give you an example. A few years ago, I broke my hip and my femur, and I am left with kind of a permanent injury where for me to sit and do therapy with people, sitting with my legs down all day is too painful. So I have a recliner. That was my answer. Okay, I'll sit with my feet up, and that was fine. Well, guess what? Just sitting too many hours. So I've had to come up to the hard choice and limit the amount of hours in any day that I sit. I used to be able to see a lot more clients in a day. I can't do that now because I can't sit that long. And I had to just face the hard choice of that. And it's taken me 4 years to admit that. But now I'm there. And I'm at the hard choice, and I'm at the nope, I don't go past this many hours sitting because I can't. So I want you to know what your hard choice is. There has to be something, and you said them in the chat earlier, where you're not choosing your self-care because you're choosing something else. And now you have to make some hard choices, right? So it means I make less money, I have less of an income because of this. And it means that I am not going to put myself through sitting longer and harming my body. So I've made that hard choice. Raise your hand if you're aware of a hard choice that you know you need to make around supporting your self-care and what that is, just so that we have another example from our group. Sarah, go ahead. Unmute yourself, Sarah. Hi.
I kind of thought you were just polling the group to see if. But
No, I'm not. I want to actually hear
I'm-
your hard choice because it
like, oh, I didn't know.
inspires us.
It's a little vague, so I need to narrow it down a little, but it has to do with accepting my own capacity it has to do with making the hard choice to accept my own capacity that is limited compared to this idealized version of a productive human in capitalist culture, and accepting that I might not look like my partner in what I'm able to do, or I might not look like so and so.
Oh, I love that. That is, oh my gosh. And when you think about like how much pressure there is on all of us, right? To be as productive as you can, particularly to those who live in America, right? That productivity thing. And in these times, everything takes more time to do anyway. But to really come to the truth of, I just can't be that productive, or as productive as so-and-so, or I don't have as much energy as so-and-so, right? Or I don't want to spend all my time doing what somebody else is doing, right? And really what I call that swimming in your own lane, because I'm a swimmer. And when I go to the pool, you can start to feel competitive, like speeding up to match the speed of somebody in the next lane over, rather than what I keep coming back to when I swim my laps is stay in your own lane. Just go at your own speed. Just do your own thing and go as long as you want to go, and then get out of the pool. Like, just stay in your lane. And, you know, in social media, you see a lot too that can make you feel like there's that kind of pressure to be more and do more. Somebody threw in the chat a really good one, that that hard choice of accepting lower grades if you're taking classes in school, and saying good enough. Oh, I did a whole year of self-care good enoughing myself, saying that was good enough, good enough. That was a really big one for me on one of my self-care wheels for a long time, was having this phrase that that helped remind me. So that's a really, thank you for throwing that in the chat. All right, here's your third one. Your third question for your wheel, and the topic is social. So we've all experienced more social disruption and disconnection than maybe we've had in the past. Who do you want to reconnect to? who would be a priority in your life to establish a reconnection with? And what steps can you take to bring more social satisfying connection into your life? And I picked this one in particular because there is a ton of research out there that says, as social beings, we really need social connection. That this is really important for all of us as human beings, even for the introverts that are on today. There is a need, a human need for connection, and we've all experienced a lot of disruption. So I want you to focus on that and really think about who do you need to reach out to? Who do you want to go the extra mile for to bring them back into your life in some way that maybe you ended up cut off from during the pandemic, or that you just feel more distance from, and that, you know, you're going to be willing to make effort. And that might mean not measuring, I called them twice and now they've never called me back, or I invited them for lunch and now they've never invited me. Try not to keep a scoreboard about that social connecting, because some people are just better at skill at bringing people together and forming those connections. And some people just aren't as great at that. So don't demand that as a requirement for connecting with someone. Just decide, bring what you want to the table, and you create what you need in connection. And if someone is not responsive or takes so long, you know, talk to them about it. Just say, you know, I've reached out a couple times. I would really love to hear back. Are you okay? I always assume when I don't hear back from someone that they're not okay and something has happened. So I always start with, hey, are you okay? Is there any? Yes, Keith, I see your hand up. Unmute yourself. Hi
Hi,
there.
yeah. I'm sorry if there's bad background noise, but I'll try and be brief. How can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. So when you have to discern if your social engagements have been a site of overextension, you know, if you're in a position where you care for others or have a sense of duty to your family or friends, how do you discern what social connections are not depleting your cup versus the ones that are filling?
Right. So when we're looking at social connecting, we're just not looking at just social. We are evaluating, is this a happy, fulfilling experience for me? Right? Because, you know, I know you, Keith, and I know that, you know, sometimes we're in professions where we're seen as helpers. And so sometimes then when we get together with friends, you can hear more load of what's going on in their life. They're carrying troubles, right? And what really helps is I try to plan social activities when I'm with a friend. So we're going to walk in a beautiful place. So that's also resourcing me at the same time, even if something heavy comes up in their life. I'll plan like going to see a museum or an art thing, or we will get together and we'll paint and we'll knit. So I kind of structured a little bit with my friends so that there is something resourcing happening while we're doing this. And if I'm with, and I have a friend that I've had to talk to about this, I'm not afraid to say these things to friends. You know, they always wanted to talk about politics, and then they'd get really angry about politics, and then they would go on, and our big 2-hour walk is like all about politics, which interests me 0% to talk about. Like I'm not engaged even in wanting to be in the discussion, no less spend 2 hours in it. And I said that. I just said, you know, here's what I notice. When we get together, you have a lot going on about politics that you like to talk about. And I'm not interested in spending my time, my free time on that subject. And you are really angry about it. So I really recommend that you find a friend that's into that. and can share that with you, and maybe even a group that's into that, because I'm not into it. And that's okay. And when we get together, would it be okay with you if we focus our time on some other subject? We could read a book together and talk about that novel. I do that too. I'll send friends a title of a book and I'll say, do you want to read this with me? And then we'll get together and talk about it. So again, I'm resourcing. Does that help, Keith? And I'm also setting some boundaries on what I can and can't be around when I'm in my free time and I'm resourcing socially.
Mhm.
And maybe years ago, that would have been hard for me to say. Or, you know, how you have that experience and then you talk to another friend, you're like, oh, I can't stand being with so-and-so. They're always talking about this. I've learned not to do that. I just go right to the person and I just say what it is. Like, I can't do this. I love you. And if we could spend our time together in some other way, I'm here for it. And if we can't, you need to find a friend that can be there with you in that. And I'm good with that. So you might be doing some clearing in your social connections. Do some evaluating if this is resourcing you as well, right? Whatever it is that you're doing. Okay, now we're in our fourth spot. This is called the one thing. Write down the one thing. And I want to hear all of your answers for this. So you're going to be throwing this in the chat. I want you to do what snaps to your head because this is really important. What one thing do you want to spend time doing for your own self-care? One thing. What really just popped up for you? And throw those in the chat. I'll read them out. I want you to notice if it's spiritual, if it's emotional, if it's physical, creative, or social. I just want you to notice, like, what kind of category is this one? Is it musical? You know, what is this? What is this? What did this one thing fall into? And I will start reading out what has come up in the chat. Hiking, collaborating on celebratory art projects. Oh my God, how much fun does that sound? Playtime, sleep. Okay, who's ever got sleep in there is you really have to get on that. That's very serious. Sleep is really essential. Exercising, any form, stretching, rest. Rest, the great resource refiller. Playful, being creative, daily exercise, making more art. Yeah. Notice your one thing, and I really want you to go for that one thing. And what I hope is that for next year, when we come together and look at our self-care wheels, or when you do it on your own, or however you engage in this process, that you see that your one thing has been the thing that you have really opened up to, really prioritized in your week. Like, I want you to look now at your schedules, at your week, and say, how am I writing in, this is my rest time? How am I supporting my stretching or exercising? Because sometimes, you know, maybe it's better for you to go to a class. Maybe some things I have found, particularly with physical exercise, maybe some things when you're just left to your own devices and you don't have an appointment and you don't have a time that you have to show up for it, you don't show up for it. But maybe you're the type that is like, yeah, I do yoga and I just turn on my YouTube video and I do my yoga and I'm great. And maybe you're the type of person that realizes left on your own, you never show up for it. And if that's you, then whatever your one thing is, you need to do it with another. You need to have like a buddy that you show up with, or a class that you show up to. There's classes in everything online. Do we agree? But even going in person and leaving your home, whatever it takes, realizing that if you're struggling to get to your one thing, it means you need help with it. And that is okay, because sometimes that's the boost that gets us there. I do body pump, and it's like a form of exercise. I have all the equipment at home, but I go to class twice a week. I show up for it. And getting out the door, no, it's not easy. Getting there on time, no, it's not easy. But I show up for it because I know that even with all my equipment at home, I'm not going to show up for it just by myself. And that's okay, because sometimes we need structure. So figure out if your one thing needs more structure than you're giving to it, and give yourself a little structure around this one thing. Somebody wrote that they also need to expand their social circle to grow maybe some new friendships. So, these things can take some great effort, great time commitment. So you really have to build them in and figure out, where would you go to meet some new people? How would this occur for you? Whether it's maybe you're going to join a library book club, or maybe you're going to follow up with somebody that you met at something that you went to and said, I just want to reach out to you and maybe take a walk and have some tea and get to know you better. All of this takes so much effort. So I would like to find out if there's any questions that any of you have before you go.
Can you,
and-
Sarah,
yes.
can you come back to the first capacity and tell us what the questions were again for that one?
Yes. How can you acknowledge your capacity, and where do you need to give yourself permission to have a capacity boundary?
Thank you.
Do you need all the questions repeated, Adrian?
No, I just started writing up the second one.
Okay.
I'm
So
taking
where
my-
do you need to give yourself permission to have a capacity boundary? So this is about permission and capacity, because sometimes we tell ourselves terrible things about needing our self-care time.
Mhm.
And I really want us to move to giving ourselves permission at all of those, and make sure that you're using that voice in your head about permission. It's okay for me to reach my limit. It's okay for me to be at capacity for anything. Any other questions?
Hi, I think I'm still struggling a bit with the hard choice,
Mhm.
how to word it. Maybe if you could repeat the questions there too.
Yeah. What hard choice do you need to make for your self-care? So that may mean it could be an uncomfortable choice, but it's still what you need. It's that vote for yourself, that saying yes to you, that often means saying no to someone else. That's where the hard choice usually comes in. It means I actually have to say no to this because I have to say yes to me on this. As basic as that sounds, it is a hard choice for many of us that we have been neglecting. Does that answer it? Okay, any other final questions? Yes, Tonya. Hi, Tonya.
Hi, I was wondering on social,
Mhm.
I can think of right away people that I used to be really close to, and am no longer, and mostly those are people that have moved to other places. But how do you know if a friendship has waned because you're truly on different paths, not just distance, or if it's worth rekindling.
Hmm. You know, I think it's wondering if you miss them. If there's a longing inside. And you realize that there's something about them that nobody else really fills. Whether it's the kind of conversations that you used to have, or the way they listened or showed up with you. So it's a longing that you notice, not a wishful thinking, because there are some people, like you said, that drift out of our lives and it's okay. It's okay. You know, like it, in some ways it left us better off. And that was a choice that we were making to let it go and let them go and not really kindle that relationship. But again, I come back to, does it resource you? Is it fun for you? Is it a relationship where you come away and you say, I feel so understood by this person, like in a way that others just don't see me. I have a very old friend on this planet. We've been friends since we were 4. And she sees me, she's on the East Coast, so she, you know, we rarely get to see each other physically, but she sees me in some ways that other people just never will, because she sees the 4-year-old in me and I see the 4-year-old in her. And we may not have a lot in common, having grown up and gone our own ways, but we have a very strong interest in staying connected, like a sister. Nobody else can really fill that for me that particular way. So it's that longing and recognizing that someone holds a unique space next to us that no one else stands in. That's what I would say. Okay, I honor our time together, and I know we have 2 minutes left, so I am going to take one final question. Are we good? Melissa, looks like you're Joan. Okay, I see your hand up. Jump on in, Joan.
Hi, sorry. Thanks for doing this. I just had a question about, now that I have this all written out, what is a good initiator to actually start these things? Any suggestions?
Open up your calendar. Do you keep a calendar, Joan?
I have lots of calendars.
That might be the problem right there. Yeah, so figure out, yes, other people grab on that too. Jamin has that. Yeah, the other count, the many calendars, try to get down to one where it's like, okay, this is what I do, because that would be a lot. So I would start by just looking at your upcoming next few days. You have a few days in front of you, and just look at how am I going to work some of this into my days now? Where do I need to take action? Where am I going to start honoring my capacity? Tomorrow, where can I honor my capacity? Who is the social contact that I want to begin to reach out to? What do I need to do? Am I going to research like book clubs in my area? Maybe that's what I'm going to do first. And then maybe I'm going to join one. Or maybe there's an old friend that I'm just going to send a text to and say, I would love to talk. Are you free? Whatever it is. These are now action steps. What steps am I going to take? I'm so glad you asked that question, because this isn't just like an exercise and we write it down or we make a groovy looking wheel and then it's all artistic and fantastic. But then what? It's the action, right? So the things, now I keep coming back to looking at it daily and asking myself, where am I taking action? What am I going to take action on today? Okay. I look at my one thing And I say, how am I making room for that today? 15 minutes, just 15 minutes, make room for this today. A friend told me, it was actually my guitar teacher, I really love this. He said that he had read that if you do it the same time of day every day, that it becomes more habitual. So he was talking about like practicing guitar. So I always practice my guitar after dinner. Just like you always brush your teeth probably in the morning. And then maybe throughout the day if you're me. So it's, where do I build in the habit of this? When do I reach out to my friend? What time of day do I do that? When do I do these things? Okay, so just start anywhere. There's no wrong beginning, but hold yourself accountable daily to looking at this and to taking action. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And I really appreciate our time together. I really appreciate the participation. It was lovely to hear from you. And I wish you all a really healthy, good year ahead. And take pictures of your wheel, your finished wheel, what it looks like, and just send it to me so I can inspire others with it too. Okay, bye-bye.